Hey friends, doing a little bit more on corporations in Texas. This is the second part of this video series. It's going to be a short one because it's just about corporate minutes. This only applies to incorporated entities, CORPs, INCs, incorporated corporations, professional corporations, right? These are required for corporations because failure to keep those records is indicative that the corporate form is being abused. It's just a sham. It's one of the badges of fraud, right? Like you're misusing the corporate entity to hide some malfeasance, some bad actions. You're just a bunch of bad actors and you're trying to use the corporate form to hide what you're up to. So we're going to set that aside. That's called piercing the corporate veil. And it's critical to keep minutes, to keep a corporation healthy. It's like going to the gym. It's like, why does city council keep minutes? It's a very similar concept, right? Because that transparency and that record keeping establishes a corporation is in fact a real corporation, that it has assets, and that the shareholders should be held innocent of any contract breaches or any accidents that might occur because the corporation is being used for a proper purpose, right? So these meeting minutes, what needs to go in them? Well, they have to have regular occurring meetings, right? And those meetings, sometimes they can be as simple as, quarterly, we're going to continue operations, we're going to continue this marketing strategy, essentially a validation of the current business plan, the furtherance of that business plan. Any new business needs to be identified. If there's old business, it needs to be identified. Any votes need to be recorded. Executive session might need to be detailed. Attorney-client privilege, on the other hand, can be noted, but it should be kept privileged, right? Those communications usually happen in an executive session. In other words, it's not going to be part of the minutes. It is a privileged communication between the corporation's attorney and the corporation's shareholders and officers, and that communication just simply needs to be noted. The subject matter of that communication remains privileged. That privilege stays with the corporation and the shareholders as long as the corporation is active, right? And then finalize the minutes. Well, what does that mean? So that means the minutes are kept usually by the secretary, right? The secretary of the corporation. That's their job for however long they're the secretary. Usually those officers rotate every year, every 2 years, right? It might be the same 4 officers or 2 officers, wearing different hats, right? I'm president and secretary, I'm vice president and treasurer, and they just exchange those hats. Sometimes there's a group of 4. That makes it easy, because you got 4 officers. So that way everybody just, moves their chair and their area of responsibility moves from year to year. But the point of it is that how do you finalize those minutes? Well, it's the secretary's job to make those recordings, to have them drafted up, and then they are presented to the board, to the board of officers, to the board of members or managers at the next meeting to be approved, right? So that's how, it's just that simple, right? So let's say you have 2 meetings a year. Let's say that you and your wife are the president and vice president and treasurer, secretary, each of you wear, y'all divide those 2 hats. 1 year it's your job to keep the minutes. So you would write down, meeting occurred on 11/30/2020, validated current business plan, authorized moving forward, keeping current business plan, maybe expanding advertising, no new business, and then of course validating and accepting the minutes from the prior meeting. And just repeat that process, right? And keep those records where they can easily be obtained in case your CPA wants them, in case the IRS wants them in an audit. These are the things that will validate that the company is actually a corporation and not being misused. So they don't have to be super detailed. They just have to be done, and they have to meet some minimal guidelines to show that the corporation is being used for a proper purpose and that it is adhering to the corporate form, which is a fancy way of saying taking care of its own business, right? Keeping minutes is part of taking care of a corporation and incorporated entities business. Anyway, any more questions on that? Chat at ashmorelawfirm.com, chat at ashmorelawfirm.com, or text Ashmore X2 to 47 177 Ashmore X2 to 47,177. Thank you.